Welcome to another episode, a very special episode of Adventures in Movies Looks at dot dot. This week we're looking at the Fantasia Film Festival, specifically some of our favorite movies. My name is Nathaniel Muir, and I'm the movie editor at AIPT. This week I'm joined by one of our contributors to the movie section, Regina.
Hello.
We have been covering this film festival for all of August.
Pretty much, yeah. Seems like it's been the whole month, really, yeah.
Yeah, it's taking most of the month. Before we continue, I'd like to say thanks, and I'm gonna forget names, and I apologize, but to Alicia, Kayla, Steven, Ted, everybody with the Fantasia crew, everyone on Discord, thank you very much. Also, thank you to some of the contributors that were there. All the contributors were there. Nightmare Conjuring, Sonic Cinema, Jello Club of the Month. They had representatives from there covering the event, and they would share their recommendations and their thoughts. And it kind of gave me an idea of what movies I wanted to see. So you can read all the movies that we talk about. All the reviews will be up on AIPT. There's also other sites that you can go to. The Fantasia Film Festival have brought in a lot of press from around the world, but definitely you can check it out. But let's get into some of our favorites. So, what was your most favorite movie that you got to see from Fantasia?
I think the most favorite probably turned out to be Fried Berry. If you're not familiar with Fried Berry, the premise of it is that there is a man, he's a really bad man named Barry, who gets abducted by aliens. And when he comes back down to Earth, he's got an alien inside of him. So it's about the alien basically trying to figure out how to navigate Barry's crazy life from a very outsider perspective. It's pretty interesting. Lots of fun.
Barry is a heroin addict, right?
He is.
Hence the
Yeah.
title. He's fried on heroin, and it gets him. You also, it's on YouTube. You guys can check it out. But you had an interview with the director of the movie, Ryan Kruger.
Right. Yes, and he was really great, and he very gratefully came to talk to us. So thank you to Ryan Kruger as well.
The link is right above here or here, but check it out. Definitely, you can check out that interview. Um, yeah, somewhere up here. The movie that my favorite movie was a horror movie, Bleed With Me. Really good movie, very strong. It's a small, intimate movie, three people, so that means you have to have a strong performance. All did very, very well. Most specifically, it's gonna sound like I'm joking around, or maybe I'm mispronouncing the name. Lauren Beatty, not Warren Beatty. Lauren Beatty did a excellent job as the possible antagonist. I don't know. The movie is about a couple. They're gonna go out to a cabin in the woods. So already the red flags go up. It's a cabin in the woods, snowy, desolate, lonely. Like it's just a very, very typical horror setup. They're gonna go out there, and let me find the name for Lauren Beatty. Emily is her name. She invites her friend with them. So her friend's a third wheel, basically. So it deals with social awkwardness. There's themes of self-harm, independence. Paranoia is a huge part of this, and it also plays into some of those typical horror tropes. But the story is so tight; it's so well told. One of the things that are very popular right now is the slow burn horror. That, I mean, they've been around forever, right? Rosemary's Baby, I think, is a pretty obvious one. But in recent years, it seems like they've become more popular, but they're always polarizing. Like I think this is a very, very good movie, and definitely one that people should look out for. Did you get a chance to see any horror movies? I know you're a
Yes, I
huge
did
horror fan.
actually. Yeah, yeah. I actually did get a chance to see a couple. Speaking of slow burn horror movies, I would say that The Oak Room is one of those slow burn movies, and it's basically just about a guy who walks into a bar, has a story to tell. So sorry. The guy who walks into a bar has a
No
story to
COVID.
tell. No COVID, just a frog. um, and then he's telling a story about another guy who walks into a bar, and it's like, what's going to happen with these stories? And it's got a very urban legend feel, and the payoff to these stories is really cool. Actually, I won't spoil it. It stars R.J. Mitty, Walt
Breaking
Jr. of
Bad.
Breaking Bad. Yeah. So, but it was a very, it's just like a, I like the slow burn feel of it. It was a, it's such a good exercise in storytelling and tension building. So
A movie that I saw that's not so much a slow burn, but it does have a satisfying payoff is Shinichiro Ueda, who directed One Cut of the Dead. Very, I've talked about it a lot on the podcast. Very good movie. I won't get it too much into it, but I will say that it tricked you when you watch it. But very good movie. But he directed a movie called Special Actors. It's about a man who he wants to be an actor, but he has a really bad character flaw. We'll say, whenever he's confronted by another male, he faints. It doesn't matter if it's in real life, and it doesn't matter if it's a scene that's being acted out. He will faint every single time. So he joins a group called Special Actors, and this group is hired to, if someone's opening up a stand-up comedy, they'll go and they'll laugh at stand-up comedy acts. They cry at funerals. They attend parties to make them look like they're more crowded than they actually are. They, and through circumstances that I won't get too much into, but basically they get hired to investigate a cult that absolutely is not Scientology, because the cult is scamming the innkeepers of some local innkeepers, so someone wants that their religion to be exposed, basically. So it's not so much a slow burn, but there's a series of escalating cons that are being played throughout there, and they're not, the payoffs aren't immediate, but when they do happen, it's excellent. The thing about this movie is, if you've seen anything like Catch Me If You Can, I think with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks is a really good example. The Grifters, you kind of you're trained to know to not believe anything. Like nothing is as it seems. You know that. Um, and this movie, it doesn't. I won't say they're predictable, but you know that nothing is what it's like. Face value, you can't take anything at face value. But the story pays off in the last like 15 minutes are so heartwarming. Like, had a smile on my face the entire time. There's the tension of the lead character fainting at any moment, but then the last 15 minutes are so well done. Like, it's very. It pulls at the heartstrings. It really does, and it also ends with a twist. He's kind of like M. Night Shyamalan and Ding Dong, except he does a good job of it. Thing with twists is that they expose storytelling, and some people think like, oh, I could tell whatever story I want. The twist is what people will remember, and that's true, but that's not necessarily a good thing. Whereas in Special Actors, the twist is there, but it's the characters and the story that's really important. So that's a really good one, and hopefully people will get a chance to check that one out. What other movies did you see?
I saw Monster Seafood Wars, and that's it's a kaiju movie. So it's a pretty funny premise. It's a guy who's a delivery guy. He's a disgraced scientist. So he's delivering food to a shrine for this like a annual holiday. And so he's got in his basket a squid, an octopus, and a crab. And due to some hijinks, they end up falling into the water where it's contaminated, and they turn into a kaiju who decide to have these crazy epic fights with each other while they're destroying the city. Um, and when you have giant octopus and crab fighting with each other, I guess pieces of them are going to fall off and land all over the city. So you're going to want to eat them. So it's a really fun movie. It's all about trying to kind of like get the situation under control. It's kind of told through the lens of like looking back on the day that the kaiju attacked. It was a fun movie. I enjoyed it.
That's cool. Did you like kaiju movies before you saw this one?
Yeah, definitely. They're always a lot of fun. And if you like kaiju movies, um, the design of the costumes of the kaiju monsters, it's the very throwback to the rubber suits, just a guy in a costume. Um, so it's really colorful and cute, but it's awesome.
Like the classic look, like there people get so caught up, and because it's so well done nowadays with the CGI and the special effects, that the classic, dude in a rubber suit kind of flailing about, people trying, it does have a charm to it. Do you think that'll turn people off, or do you think it'll find its audience?
I think it'll find its audience for sure. I know some people like everything to be like dark and gritty, but you know what? There's also, I think if you are into these movies, you are into the lighter aspects of it, the fun part of it. That's just like it's a giant monster attacking. So I think you'll enjoy it. I think it definitely has its audience.
I got to finding an audience can be very difficult. I actually got to see a documentary called Clapboard Jungle. And for some people, it won't sound very interesting. It's about an independent filmmaker, basically. And it's the 4 years that he took to make a movie, and he kind of chronicled everything. Um, it sounds like, wow, if you're not into film, like this is just, what's the point in watching it? I don't want to see a dude go to pitch meetings in Cannes and get turned down or whatever. But it's actually really interesting. It kind of delves into the movie industry. It delves into stream. This is all stuff that's relevant to all of us now. Streaming, it kind of goes into how difficult, not how easy it is to make a movie, but how difficult it is to get it out there. But it's like a coming of age wouldn't be the right. It's a self discovery, and it's a very very good documentary. Very fun. The character is actually very interesting. He ended up, and this is mild spoiler, the movie that he was working on during the course of the documentary he was filming, it does end up getting picked up. It's on Showtime right now, actually. But the journey to get there is so interesting. It's so fun to watch, and it's interesting to watch him change. It's about having a dream and sticking to it, and how hard it can be to stick to your dream in the face of all kinds of difficulty. Now his movie's out there, and then COVID hit. So I mean, that kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Did you have a chance to see any documentaries? I know there was quite a few out there.
You know what? I did watch one that caught my attention. It was called Texas Trip Carnival of Ghosts. So this one, I gotta say, I was really looking forward to it. I was a little bit disappointed by it. So it's sort of marketed as it starts off by saying that it's like the opening is like a montage of films and drive-in theaters, and they're all abandoned, and you hear the Joe Bob Briggs drive-in mutant oath playing over it, and so you think, wow, what's gonna happen with this? It's interesting. Texas is an interesting backdrop for it, but then it turns out the rest of the movie doesn't really go back to the drive-ins portion of it, so I'm not quite sure, but definitely does, I guess, embody the spirit of the drive-in mutant oath. Um, so, I mean, while there's a real great directing in it, it's an interesting subject. It's about a band of like just misfits who want to make music and perform, and they make music out of anything. Some are, but it's rusty instruments. Some are actual instruments. Some are just like objects they find that they can kind of like bang around or like saw in pieces to like make sounds. Um, Real cool visuals, but just sort of like the actual like narrative of the documentary just kind of trails, kind of goes with the kind of goes with the title of Texas Trip. It's like when you wander through half of Texas is all desert. It's kind of like that feeling almost.
Very barren and boring,
Yeah.
is what you're saying.
A
uh,
little bit.
I will say the Texas trip thing, and I don't know if it was the marketing that they decided to do or how they saw. But you're right. Like the very first, within the first three sentences, mentions Joe Bob, has the drive-in oath, and it mentions Texas. Those are three things that like I'm cool with. So I'm like, okay, this sounds interesting. Visually, like I saw some stills from it. It looks awesome. Like the stills look really, really cool.
Oh, there are some great shots that are just amazing to look at. Like, if you were like to blow them up until they make them into a poster, it would just be awesome. Like, seriously, like the camera work, the directing, it's all great, and just like the visuals of it, it's very artistic. It's just sort of like it just sort of like lost me along the way, though. Like
Well,
narrative.
when you say performance art, I think of like someone painting a picture of like I don't know a fork and somebody like peeing on a spoon next to it, and like that's their art. Like that's what I think of. I'm not saying that about this movie. Speaking of disappointing movies, so one of the ones that I was looking forward to going into it was Crazy Samurai Musashi. I believe it was announced in the first or the second wave of movies. Do you like movies with no cuts in it or scenes with no cuts?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm always interested to see how it's done, and I want to see exactly what it is that's being done to see what would warrant that type of type
It's a
of
cool
challenge.
gimmick, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
it's cool.
Quentin Tarantino does it a lot. Most famously, I would say the Copa scene in Goodfellas. Birdman, most recently 1919. I mean, Birdman won an Oscar in 1919, almost won one. So, I mean, they've been around for a long time, going back to Alfred Hitchcock's Rope. Um, Crazy Samurai Musashi, so there's no narrative to it. So right off the bat, should have kind of put up a warning for me. But It's one man against 500, one samurai against 588 guys. It sounds awesome. It's a 77-minute battle. So you think like, cool, I'm gonna see one samurai. It's like a video game basically. It doesn't translate so well to film. Like if you actually sit there and think about it, which I didn't, watching one guy fight 600 guys for over an hour is very, very tedious. Um, Especially because they have this like I'm assuming samurais they always have these honor codes that they talk about and stuff, and so none of even though there's hundreds of guys, it's never all of them at one. They take their time. One comes, beats him. Another one comes, he beats him. Another one comes, he beats him. Um, I get that they can't hire 500 extras at one time, but and I get that's cool that they're recycling the same dudes. Except it's kind of not cool when you can see those guys like walking off camera, crawling off camera, and after you see it the first time, you're gonna see it every single time afterwards. And narratively, there's nothing to it. I mean, technically, amazing. Technically, it's very sound. I have no complaints about it on that level. It's not bad, but it really disappointed me because I was expecting this balls out. I don't know what the heck I was. I mean, I guess the John Wicks and Atomic Blondes of the world have kind of given me a certain expectation of action films, and that's on me. I should have probably lowered my expectations for it. But even just a fight, just a straight up 77-minute sword fight, basically, it's just not very exciting. So, if you're into samurai, I mean, it might be worth it, but I don't know if almost an hour and a half is it's worth it. Um, what movie really surprised you? You watched a lot of shorts, actually.
I watched a lot of shorts, and there was a few that were pretty surprising. And they're short films, so there's not really too much I can say about them without giving away the surprising aspects of them. But one in particular, called "You Wouldn't Understand." You wouldn't understand if I told you what it was about. So I will just say that it's about a man in this very pastoral, picturesque setting. It's all green. He's sitting on a cozy blanket, with surrounded by books and like a lifetime supply of reading and cheeses and wine, and it all looks nice and relaxing. And then a mysterious stranger shows up, and everything just goes completely bonkers. Um, it's a very simple setting, and I want to say that it's just the performances are really great. They're just so eerie, and they're very reminiscent, especially one character. If you're a fan of Twin Peaks, and Agent Dale Cooper's just so strange delivery of like, what do you call those wonderful trees, that type of thing. It's very reminiscent of that kind of character that's a little too happy, like, what's wrong with you?
Well,
But
the
it's
premise in
fun.
itself is interesting. Someone just hanging out, having an idyllic picnic, and then someone shows up. You're like, okay, is it a deal with the devil thing? Is it just somebody trolling them? Is it someone on the run? Like it's an interesting setup, no matter what. Um, I got to see a short out of Spain called Your Last Day on Earth. This one is set in a future where time travel is possible. There's a company called Time Tours. They pay or they charge a large sum of money for it, and they have very strict rules. And it's pretty straightforward. If you break the rules, you die. So one man decides that for his time tour, he wants to spend some time with his wife. And then from there, the narrative kicks in. It's like 12, 13 minutes, maybe. Um, it has a wonderful twist in it. And then it ends with another twist that is a little more predictable, but it's also delivered in a way that's very heartfelt. In the course of this, just over 10 minutes, they deliver a very emotionally powerful story that will absolutely resonate with people. I mean, it's sci-fi and fantastic, and one of the rules is they have to wear a fox head and they can't take it off no matter what. So it looks really silly. It looks like an infomercial late at night, but it's this. So once you see why the person went back, what they wanted to do, and then the final revelation, it really hits home. It's very well done, and just I absolutely, if you have a chance to see Your Last Day on Earth, absolutely check it out. So, final thoughts. This was all virtual Fantasia Film Festival. How did you think it went with the hall? How easy was it? And overall, did you enjoy it?
Oh, it was a very enjoyable experience. I think it's very easy. I like the idea of virtual film festivals. Well, for one, you don't have to worry about how to actually get to them. So
Yeah.
that saves you a problem there. But I mean, I think this one was really well managed. I think everything was so accessible, and I mean, everyone you thanked earlier. I mean, just, they want to get the movies out, and they're just so helpful. And I think having that kind of team makes it that much easier, and it really does make the experience a whole lot more enjoyable too. I mean, it's things are accessible to you, and it's all you guys do is really like enjoy the films.
This was the third one you've done virtually because you did, right? Chattanooga and South by Southwest.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome. This was really, really, really well done. Um, you can't really replicate the feeling of like a live film festival, and other things would be replicated if they had a live film festival. So I wouldn't want to go to one, but they did such a good job of trying to make it as live, as real as possible. It was a wonderful job. It was really great, and honestly, it's kind of sold me on the aspect. I've done a couple of them also, and I've enjoyed them. This one was very well put together, very easy, very very easy. Like I didn't suffer from the festival fatigue that you tend to suffer from. Like I think this went very well, and I enjoyed it very much. And I look forward to doing more of them. To be honest with you, first year at Fantasia, which is a quote unquote at Fantasia, so I really enjoyed that. Also, I love the slate that they had, and hopefully we can do more in the future. Next week, we'll have our normal format going on here at Adventures in Movies Looks at dot dot dot. I don't know what we're going to talk about because we talk about everything from film festivals to horror to documentary to comedy. It's all here. If there's anything that you think we should look at, then definitely let us know in the comments below. We also here on YouTube have Adventures in Movies Quick and Dirty. Our podcast, Adventures in Movies, is on Spotify and iTunes and on the website. Also, all our Fantasia coverages are all the movies we discussed, plus a couple of other ones that were just as good that we just saw so many we just didn't have a chance to get to them. But definitely check that out and check out the interview with Ryan from Fried Berry. Thank you very much, and we'll talk to you next week. Thank you very much, Regina.
Bye. Thank you.